Can a waitress change an entire empire? 28-year-old Aisha Carter's heart pounded in the quiet Detroit bar when a shout ripped through the darkness. Fear surged, but her compassion was stronger. She sprinted forward to find a drunken man sprawled on the floor, his once luxurious vest rumpled. Shadowy figures lurked nearby, yet Aisha pulled him to safety. She never imagined that this single act would unravel a multi-million-dollar secret, transform her from anonymous server to local hero, and ignite hope across the neighborhood. Dear viewers, take a moment to relax or pour yourself a drink, then stay tuned for the rest of this unexpected story. Comment 1 if you're enjoying it, so we know you're still with us. That night's rain poured over East Detroit as if to wash the city's sorrows from every rooftop and cold brick street. Rainwater swelled the gutters and streamed across the sidewalks, as if trying to sweep away all unnamed heartaches. Inside the small bar called Silver Anchor, flickering yellow lights reflected on raindrops sliding down the window panes. 28-year-old Aisha Carter was carefully drying the last drops from the counter after a long, tiring shift. She was used to the numbing stillness of a rainy night, until a piercing scream shattered the silence. Without hesitating, Aisha dashed outside, her apron swinging at her hip. Before her lay a scene that stopped her heart. A man in a dark suit sprawled on the sidewalk, hair disheveled, shoes submerged in a murky puddle. 3 figures in black hoodies closed in, their footsteps cold and their gazes sharp as blades slicing through the downpour. "Sir, are you all right?" Aisha knelt beside the stranger and gripped his elbow with trembling hands. Without waiting for an answer, she half-dragged him into the narrow alley beside the bar, her heart racing with fear, yet never pausing. Safe in the shadows, she realized this man was no local. His soaking suit was high-end, his Rolex winked under the street lamp, and a luxury leather wallet lay nearby, nearly swept away by the water. Aisha picked up the wallet and opened it, intending to find ID, until her eyes paused on a business card. Elliot Grayson, CEO, Grayson Enterprises. She froze. Every resident in Detroit had heard of that name. One of the city's most successful yet private entrepreneurs, owning swaths of real estate and a chain of luxury hotels across America. And now he lay unconscious in her arms, in a rain that seemed endless. Acting quickly, Aisha waved down a taxi rounding the corner. She helped Elliot inside, pressed a $40 bill into the driver's hand, and said, "No extra fare. Just get him home safely." She left without giving her name or number. To her, helping someone in need was right, whether they were a CEO or homeless. A week passed. The rain stopped, leaving the city damp and heavy. In her familiar bar, Aisha folded napkins, her mind replaying the strange encounter. Suddenly, the door chime rang. She looked up, and in that moment, the world seemed to still. The man in the doorway was no longer the disheveled figure from the storm. He wore a perfectly tailored suit, his hair neatly combed, his expression composed, but his eyes astonishingly familiar. It was him, Elliot Grayson. "You're Ms. Carter?" His voice was low and warm, like a melancholy jazz tune. "I owe you my thanks." Aisha stammered, not sure what to say. She just nodded. Elliot pressed on, a sincerity in his eyes she never expected from a man of his stature. "That night, if not for you, I don't know what would have happened. You were the only one who stopped." He produced a slim folder and placed it on the counter. "I want to give you a gift. A hotel, Starlight Haven. It's not thriving, but it has potential. Consider it my heartfelt thanks to the woman who saved me." Aisha stared at him, eyes wide, disbelieving. A hotel? As a bartender, her dreams of owning her own place had felt so distant, now suddenly within reach. But what moved her most wasn't the gift, but his recognition. For the first time, someone truly saw the value of a kind act and chose to repay it wholeheartedly. That night, alone in her tiny room, Aisha opened the folder and gazed at the photograph of the aging hotel. Something awakened in her, a new chapter, an unforeseen journey, and perhaps the beginning of something far greater than any gift. Starlight Haven was not the dreamscape Aisha had imagined. What met her eyes were not only signs of decay, but an unsettling sense lurking in every small detail. Though presented as a gift, this hotel seemed to conceal far more than it revealed. From her first days auditing the books, Aisha sensed something amiss. Regular payments to obscure companies, North Point Solutions, Evergreen Ventures, lined the ledgers, each transaction amounting to thousands of dollars. The invoices cited vague services, technical maintenance, security services, system repairs, none of which left a trace beyond the billing statement. Yet, every time she inspected the premises, not one service had been performed. One evening, alone in the dusty back office, Aisha resolved to search through every drawer and filing cabinet. Behind a heavily secured door, she discovered a small ring of keys and a bundle of old documents. Among them were handwritten ledgers, records that did not exist in the hotel's electronic system. One entry billed $8,000 for elevator maintenance, even though the elevator had been out of service since the previous year. Another charged for carpet cleaning, despite the hall carpets remaining threadbare and dusty. The payments recurred as if generated to serve a hidden purpose. None of the payee companies left an online footprint. No address, no phone number, no registration details. It was as though they did not truly exist. Slowly, a harsh truth took shape. This hotel was a front for a money laundering network. It was not mere accounting errors or poor management. It was a sophisticated, long-running scheme. Marcus Tate, the former manager, was clearly a central figure. But he had vanished. No former staff member knew his whereabouts. His personal records were scant, his listed phone number disconnected. Aisha began noticing strange behaviors around the hotel. A mysterious man who sat in a car across the street for hours. One night, as she left the premises late, she realized she was being followed. The sense of being watched tightened the knot of fear in her gut. Someone did not want her digging deeper. In the basement storeroom, she uncovered a hidden safe behind a loose partition. Inside lay photocopied passports, loan agreements, and photos of clandestine meetings, all linked to Marcus Tate. Some images were date-stamped, showing Tate shaking hands with a known local political figure. The pieces clicked into place. This network was not merely laundering money, it involved corruption and larger criminal operations. What chilled Aisha most was the possibility that Elliot Grayson had known all along, and still handed her the hotel as a gift. But why? Because he trusted her? Because he sought deniability? Or was she simply a pawn in a far grander game? Part of Aisha wanted to walk away, return to her old life and pretend the gift had never been accepted. But doing so would mean turning a blind eye, something her compassionate nature could not allow, especially when she thought of her mother and all the sacrifices she had made for her. Aisha decided to photograph every document, back them up across multiple devices, and send copies to a trusted attorney. From now on, every step would be taken with utmost caution. because she knew she was venturing into a dangerous labyrinth where a single misstep could cost her life. Yet, in the darkness, one thought propelled her onward. If not her, then who? If she had once been saved by a selfless stranger, then today, why shouldn't she repay life with her own courage? Now, Aisha was no longer an unwitting heir. She held the key to the truth, and that truth, however terrifying, was the only path to her freedom. One late weeknight, while the rooms of Starlight Haven lay silent, Aisha sat hunched over the old wooden desk, reviewing invoices. The rain tapped persistently against the porch, like endless whispered warnings, when suddenly the glass door shuddered. A tall figure appeared in the dimly lit lobby, his silhouette stretching long under the yellow glow. The man wore a charcoal gray suit, his stride unhurried yet carrying an eerie chill. His gaze, sharp as a razor, swept the room before settling on her. "Ms. Carter?" His voice was deep, polite, but devoid of warmth. "My name is Julian Holt. I once collaborated with Marcus Tate." Aisha's heart clenched. She rose to her feet, forcing composure. "I've never heard Mr. Tate mention you," she replied evenly. Julian offered a faint smile that never reached his eyes. He produced a matte black business card from his breast pocket, embossed only with the legend J. Holt and a silver leopard logo. "You're digging into matters best left alone," he said in a steady, glacial tone. "Consider this a warning, not a threat. Stop now if you know what's good for you." Before she could respond, he turned and left, leaving behind the scent of expensive cologne and an atmosphere taut as a drawn bowstring. Aisha clenched the card in her hand, her eyes fixed on the revolving door as it closed behind him. Fear flared, but above all she felt one overwhelming emotion: anger. The next day, she contacted Lena, her college best friend, now a senior executive at a commercial bank. "I need you to trace any transactions linked to North Point Solutions," Aisha whispered over the phone. Lena asked no questions. They had protected each other through many hardships. Their trust was implicit. Within 2 days, Lena called back, her voice tense. "Aisha, I've uncovered some details. North Point is a shell company tied to an overseas entity, moving funds through multiple accounts in the Caymans and Luxembourg. The name Julian Holt appears as an authorized signatory in a number of these records. This is no child's game." Aisha sat stunned. She meticulously logged every piece of information, encrypted the data files, then locked them in a private safe. The sense of danger was no longer a hunch. It was real. And then, the strange events began. First, the food freezer suddenly malfunctioned despite recent maintenance, spoiling an entire shipment. Next, a water main burst at dawn, flooding the basement. Then a city inspector appeared unannounced, immaculately dressed, stern-faced, demanding a full safety audit and presenting a lengthy list of violations. But the strangest moment came that night when Aisha returned to the office and found all the files she'd neatly organized that morning overturned. Nothing was missing, yet it was clear someone had rifled through her papers looking for something. She checked the security cameras and discovered the system had been powered down in the middle of the night. Julian was sending a message, a clear one. Every action was a reminder. She was trespassing in territory that wasn't hers. Aisha sat alone in the dark, the black business card before her. Her hand trembled slightly, but her eyes burned with determination. Fear no longer paralyzed her. Instead, it ignited in her a fiercer will than ever before. "He thinks he can threaten me? Then he's never met the resolve of a woman who's outlived every loss." She drafted her next steps. Upgrade security systems, hire a private attorney, reach out to an investigative journalist a college friend had recommended. Each move would require absolute discretion. She also understood that Julian's appearance meant she was closing in on the truth he fought so hard to conceal. And that could lead to only two outcomes. She'd be stopped forever, or she'd expose the entire network to daylight. Aisha was no longer alone. Lena was at her side, ready to help. And several new staff members she'd hired, people who believed in the hotel's rebirth, were beginning to suspect after witnessing the string of sabotage. Though they didn't yet know the full story, they trusted her. And that was power. Night fell as Aisha stood before the second-floor window, looking down at the deserted street. The same black car that had shown up so often sat across the road, motionless like a predator. But this time, she did not turn away. She stared it down as if issuing a challenge. "I will not stop," she whispered. "I will not fear the darkness, because I am the light they never expected." Dear viewers, take a moment to relax or pour yourself a drink and stay tuned for the rest of this unfolding story. Comment 1 if you're enjoying it, so we know you're still here. Aisha knew that to fight the darkness, she couldn't do it alone. The next morning, she called a small meeting in the first-floor dining room, where rare sunlight filtered through frosted glass. Seated around the table were ordinary but resolute people. Lena, her steadfast best friend, Jamal, the maintenance technician who had patched every pipe in the hotel, and Rosa, the Puerto Rican housekeeper who arrived earliest and left last every day. "Starlight Haven was once a tool for criminals," Aisha said, her gaze unwavering. "But we can turn it into something better. I'm not backing down, and I don't want anyone to feel forced." The room fell silent for a few seconds. Then Jamal nodded first, his voice low but firm. "If they think they can intimidate us, they've never lived in Detroit." Lena smiled and Rosa reached out to squeeze Aisha's hand. No more words were needed. The truth had been shared, and for them, that was enough to begin. In the days that followed, the team ran the hotel as usual, but behind the scenes they started watching for anything suspicious. Jamal installed hidden cameras in obscure corners. Lena helped spot irregular transactions and match them against bank records. Rosa kept a log of unfamiliar faces, especially a gray-suited man who frequently arrived late at night, asking vaguely about the new owner. One evening, Lena summoned Aisha to the parking lot behind the hotel. "That black BMW has returned for the third time this week," she whispered. Through the camera feed, they clearly saw the license plate and that unmistakable figure, Julian Holt. She wasn't just being threatened, she was being watched. Aisha knew it was time for a bolder move. She reached out to Naomi Brooks, a veteran investigative reporter at the Detroit Free Press. Naomi had exposed corruption in government and major corporations, and she was the only person Aisha trusted with this story. At their first meeting, Naomi looked her straight in the eye. "Do you understand what you're up against?" "I do," Aisha replied without flinching. "And I'm not running away." And so they began. Every night after the hotel closed, Aisha and Naomi pored over documents. Lena provided encrypted bank reports. Rosa supplied a recording she'd accidentally made a year earlier when Marcus had called, where the name Holt was clearly mentioned. An internal email cache was recovered from Marcus's old office computer, revealing shady payment instructions signed only with J. 3 weeks later, Naomi published her exposé. The Detroit Free Press front page blared, "Detroit Hotel, center of a multi-million-dollar money laundering ring." The article detailed how the network operated, Julian Holt's role, and the courage of the woman who broke the silence. Starlight Haven and Aisha's story exploded across social media and local news. Police opened an investigation. Warrants were issued. Holt was summoned. Marcus Tate became a wanted man. A purge of the city's underground finance world began with Starlight Haven at its epicenter. The media dubbed Aisha Detroit's beacon of light, but she refused interviews. While the outside world buzzed, she still cleaned rooms, helped Jamal fix leaky pipes, and folded linens with Rosa. For her, victory wasn't about fame. It was about real, incremental change, day by day. One afternoon, as Aisha watered the plants outside the hotel, a boy on a bicycle stopped at the gate, hesitating. "Are you the lady from the newspaper?" he asked. "My mom says you're very brave." Aisha knelt and smiled kindly. "I'm just an ordinary person, but sometimes ordinary people do extraordinary things when they're not afraid to speak the truth." And in that golden afternoon light, Starlight Haven, once a symbol of corruption, had become a lighthouse of hope. No longer a refuge for darkness, but a place where ordinary people rise together to do what's right. And the story of courage, friendship, and the desire for change, was far from over. It had only just begun. After the storm comes the dawn, and Aisha believed Starlight Haven deserved a fresh start. She decided to rename the hotel Starry House, a name carrying hope, a promise that this place would no longer conceal secrets but ignite futures. A new sign went up under soft lights, each letter sparkling like a star in the night. But the change went deeper than the name. Aisha transformed the hotel into a community center, a gathering place for souls seeking something better. She launched free music classes for neighborhood children, inviting local artists to teach instruments, singing, and mural painting. A small room became a mini library, hosting a Saturday night book club. A charity kitchen opened where anyone hungry could walk in for a hot meal, no questions asked. Laughter returned to corridors once cold. Children ran across the front lawn. Elders sat with cups of tea, sharing stories. The old walls were repainted, not just with color, but with love. Yet traces of darkness lingered. One morning, Aisha found an unmarked envelope on the reception desk. Inside was a single slip of paper, typed simply, "You may win this battle, but the war is not over." Her heart clenched for a moment. Then she looked around, saw Rosa quietly cleaning the counter, Jamal adjusting the speakers in the activity room, and a chorus of children rehearsing under Lena's guidance. She was no longer alone. That same week, Aisha installed a comprehensive security camera system. She worked with the neighborhood watch volunteers and organized weekend safety workshops. She refused to let fear invade again. Instead, she invited the community in, to protect together what they were building. One autumn afternoon, as the last sunbeams gilded the hotel lobby, an elderly woman with silver hair entered. She wore a worn wool coat and carried herself with slow determination. Aisha, arranging books on a shelf, looked up and smiled. "Can I help you, ma'am?" she asked. The woman paused and nodded. "I'm Evelyn Holt," she said, "Julian's mother." The room fell silent as though time itself had paused. "I wasn't expecting this," Aisha admitted softly. "I'm not here to defend my son," Evelyn continued, her gaze distant. "I know he chose the wrong path. I cannot undo his past. But I have watched what you've done for this place, for these people. You have done what I never imagined possible, turning a stain into a beacon of hope." Evelyn withdrew an envelope. "I don't have much, but this is what I've saved." She handed Aisha a check, $15,000. "Use it," she said, her voice trembling, "to keep this light burning." Aisha was speechless. She looked at the check, then at the woman before her, not merely the mother of a villain, but a mother trying to salvage a spark of light for her son and for herself. "I don't know what to say." "Just keep going," Evelyn smiled, then turned away. "Just don't give up." The door closed softly behind her, but Aisha's heart brimmed like dawn's first rays. This was more than financial aid. It was healing from an unexpected source. That night, standing alone in the lobby, Aisha gazed up at the newly hung chandelier, its gentle glow like stars overhead. "Starry house," she whispered. "Not just a shelter, but a new beginning, for anyone daring to believe they deserve another chance." And so, in a city once bound to darkness, a small flame still burned, guiding, warming, and kindling what once seemed lost. The first community gala at Starry House unfolded in a warmth unlike anything before. The hotel, once a symbol of secrets and darkness, now glowed with twinkling lights, laughter of children, and the warmth of human kindness. Kids danced under colorful spotlights, adults gathered in clusters around domino tables, and a jazz tune drifted from the piano Jamal played in the corner. Aisha stood quietly for a moment, her eyes shining with happiness as she watched everyone. This place that once made her tremble at every step had become a home for broken hearts. She climbed onto the stage, her red dress aflame against the crisp autumn night. When she raised the microphone, the room fell silent. "I once believed Detroit was a place of darkness," Aisha began, her voice calm and honest. "I thought I was just an ordinary person, powerless to change anything. But you, each one of you, showed me the light. It was your love and forgiveness that transformed this place into something beautiful." Applause erupted, but she lifted her hand to quiet the crowd. "Starry House isn't mine," she continued. "It's ours. A place where everyone, no matter their past, deserves to be loved, forgiven, and given a fresh start." She looked to the front row, where Rosa dabbed away tears, Lena smiled, and Jamal nodded proudly. "Tonight, I want to share our next step," Aisha said. "We will establish the Starry Scholarship Fund for children growing up with limitations they did not choose, and we will create a rooftop community garden where anyone can come to tend plants, grow vegetables, or simply find peace." The room erupted in cheers, but the greatest surprise was yet to come. From the back of the hall, Elliot Grayson, the man once found unconscious in the rain, stepped onto the stage in a dark suit, carrying an envelope. "Ms. Carter," he began, his voice thick with emotion. "I used to think kindness was a luxury in this world. You've proven me wrong." He handed Aisha the envelope. "These are the official deeds, granting full ownership of the Starry House property to you. No conditions." Aisha opened the envelope and stared in disbelief. "You've forgiven my mistakes," Elliot continued. "Now let this place heal us all." In that moment, more than the lights or the stage, it was the act of relinquishing the past and entrusting the future to those once forgotten that truly defined the gala. Late that night, after the guests departed, Aisha stepped onto the hotel's front porch. A soft breeze stirred her hair as the Starry House sign glowed gently in the darkness. A neighborhood child rode by on a bicycle, paused to wave, and Aisha smiled in return. She thought of her mother, who had taught her, "Love is a lamp that never goes out." Though Julian Holt still lurked in the shadows and danger was not yet over, she was no longer alone. Community, love, and forgiveness had built the most beautiful fortress: belief. "We cannot change the past," she whispered, "but we can choose how to write the future." And if you're watching this video, if Aisha's story has touched your heart, please leave a comment below. Let us know where and what time you're watching from. Share this story with your family and friends across America. A single like may not change the world, but it might just ignite hope in someone's heart, in some quiet corner of the city. Don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the next chapters of Aisha's journey at Starry House, because sometimes all it takes is a single spark to light the way for an entire generation.